All right. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. Um, I'm Cindy Baker, ADHD coach, and I'm here with a special guest tonight. So if you're jumping on live, say hi in the chat. Let me know that you're with us. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm going to pull this up on my phone real quick and make sure we'll do a little tech check here. Yep, I can see me. So all right. I don't see anybody live yet, but I know a lot of people watch the replay. So if you do watch the replay of this, just say hashtag replay. Let us know that you are interested in this topic. We're going to be talking about anxiety and ADHD and anxiety. And so if you're jumping on live, say hi in the chat, whatever platform you're watching this on. And just let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you have a question, put that in the chat. If you like something, you resonate with it, please interact. The more you do that, the more the algorithm likes it, the more you'll see these kind of videos. If you're interested in these little trainings that I have on Monday night. So um, anyway, I wanted to introduce my special guest. Debbie Wahba. She is someone that I met on Clubhouse, which is an audio app. I don't know if any of you are on Clubhouse, but she is an anxiety specialist, and she is here to kind of give us some tips. Um, Before she tells her story, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background in that there is a strong connection between ADHD and anxiety. I was reading a little bit about it today, and the statistic was something crazy like 50% of people with ADHD get an anxiety disorder. That sounds really high to me, but excuse me. But at any rate, sometimes anxiety as an emotion comes up because of our ADHD, and we're worried about forgetting things or not meeting a deadline or not getting things done or things like that. But then also there can be an anxiety disorder. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the difference is and what you can do about it. So Debbie, tell us just a little bit about you. Where do you live? What is your background with anxiety? I know you have a personal story, and we'll just start there.
Well, thank you, Cindy, for having me. Yeah, so my name is Debbie Dowling Wahba. So my anxiety started back in my early 20s. Well, let me backtrack. I was born in Massachusetts, raised in Yonkers, New York, and I currently live in Florida. But back in my early 20s, I was in college, and I was a single mom at the time, and I was raising my son. And I started to I was in class one day, and all of a sudden, like the room started spinning, and I felt like I was going to pass out. And the teacher calls the nurse. They think it's something with my sugar. Well, they wouldn't let me drive home. And it was happening more and more. And I had to go through, every test you could possibly think of, I went for. And it came down to the fact that they diagnosed me with a social panic anxiety disorder, which to me is so bizarre because I love being around people and I love talking to people. So I was like, how could I have anxiety or in a social, because I love being social. But it progressed. And then after having more children, I had also postpartum depression. And there's at one point that I was agoraphobic, where I could not even step out of my house to get the mail. And literally opening up the front door, it was 8 steps to the mailbox and 8 steps back in the door. And I had trouble. I would spend 20 to 30 minutes arguing with myself over going out to get that mail. Wow. But what changed for me was having all these kids and saying, it's really not fair to them that they are stuck in the house because I'm afraid to go outside. I couldn't do that to them. I felt it was unfair. So I had to come up with ways to cope and manage and really just get back to, so to speak, a normal way of living versus living in my own little world where I was safe in between, the four walls that I was living, and my environment was my happy place. And I had to be able to go out. I mean, there was going to be school functions, there was going to be sports, there was going to be all these things, and even just going to the supermarket. So I just had to, along the way, come up with different tips, tools, and tricks, and just come up with ways that I could cope and be outside and really just be able to be present and in the moment. And it took me years. I still battle with it. It's not something that's completely gone, but now I'm equipped so that I can get it under control a lot faster, and I can get myself out of those feelings a lot faster than I used to be able to, because I would have those feelings and then it would be days before I would kind of want to try it again. But now it's just like I sit in the moment in my feelings and try to work through them.
Did you ever find out what caused it?
No, in doing my own research, I believe that it was a trauma that happened to me when I was like 15 years old. I was date raped, and I think that was it was pent up trauma that I held within, and I really believe that that's what was the trigger.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of mental illness, that trauma connection there, especially when we're younger, we're not able to process. So you said you worked on, it took you a while, but you worked on changing. How did you do that? Um, was that something that someone told you how to pull yourself out of that, or did you just was it sort of trial and error?
It was more trial and error, because when I was diagnosed with this, I'm 52 now. So when I was diagnosed with this, I was 20. And you didn't talk about this stuff. Like my
Yeah.
dad didn't want to know anything about it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. You kind of just swept it under the rug. So a couple of years ago, I decided that, if people can talk about their diabetes and they can talk about their heart condition and their blood pressure, and why can't I talk about my anxiety? Because that's just who I am. So it's become kind of a mission, not only to help women in particular, but I do work with men, but I prefer women just because I can relate. But that's why it's become my mission to just openly have these kinds of conversations so that we can break the stigmatism around mental health in general, because I think that it's just conversations that we need to have that haven't been had. And
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable talking about it now where I wasn't before. And I think, honestly, being able to be open and honest about it with people has relieved a lot of my anxiety, because I was getting anxiety because I was hiding my anxiety. It just became this vicious circle. So being able to talk about it and share about it kind of helps me, because I don't have that additional anxiety about my anxiety.
Anxiety about anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think there is some freedom in being able to just be yourself, be your authentic, true self. And, um, because trying to hide your struggles, there's a lot of shame that
Yes.
comes, and shame is really toxic, uh, to our mindset and our growth. I apologize for my voice. um, but there are a lot of people who feel ashamed of having ADHD, and they don't want anybody to know. I had
Right.
one woman go through my program, and she didn't want to give a testimonial because she didn't want anyone to see her on a video. And I thought, well, you're in an ADHD group, and she thought, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Like everybody in the group who sees it is also struggling with that. So, um, but I know that when you have anxiety that's related to ADHD, that what happens with anxiety and depression, if the main issue is not a mental health issue, the main issue is ADHD, then learning to manage those symptoms kind of by default the depression and the ADHD, I mean, the anxiety gets better. But what you're helping people with is when they have an anxiety that's more of a not related to ADHD symptoms, but just worrying about everything. Like you said, worrying about walking to the mailbox. It becomes it affects your quality of life and it becomes debilitating. So so tell us, I mean, I guess that's one way that you could tell the difference is that if you're worrying about getting things done or not meeting a deadline because you procrastinated, that's very different from worrying about things that don't even make sense.
Yes.
So, can you talk about that a little bit? Just a little bit of the difference in just regular anxiety and an
Yeah.
anxiety disorder.
Right. So with regular anxiety, you have more of this sense of doom, and you may not know the reason why or what's going to happen. Or, if I go to the store and it's crowded and these people, and oh my goodness, and they're going to see that I have anxiety, and it just becomes this vicious circle, round and round and round. And you have these conversations of, why am I feeling this way? Oh my goodness, am I going to have a panic attack? Am I going to be anxious at the store? Is this going to? And you have these inner battles, because you're always worried about the next anxiety attack, or you're always worried about just like, okay, well, what if I'm in the store? What happens? Where do I go? What do I do? Is everybody going to see me? And that was my biggest thing, is, can everybody tell that I'm having a panic attack? And that would make it even
Mhm.
worse, and my panic attack would get worse, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I felt like everybody knew what I was feeling on the inside. In the meantime, nobody knew what I was feeling on the inside.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I think we put ourselves in a cycle of more anxiety because we worry about what people think and worry about being judged. Nobody wants to be judged or misunderstood.
Right.
So tell us, how do you help people now that um, you said for the past couple of years you've been kind of walking others through, I guess, I don't know if you call it recovery or whatever you call it with anxiety.
Well, so what I like to do is, I like to have a conversation with them first, and try to get to what the root of the problem is. And I use this technique called conversational hypnotherapy. And what it really is, it's more so for me than for the person. And what that is when I ask questions, and just so you know, never ask the question why, because our brain can come up with a million reasons.
Mhm.
You have to stay away from the question why. So when I'm speaking to somebody and I start to talk to them, I can tell from their answers, are they answering me from their conscious mind, or if they are they into the subconscious? And
Mhm.
when I start to see that they're going into their subconscious for the answers, that's when I start to ask more questions and dig into where that problem is, because lots of anxiety stems from something that's way deeper. And unless you address and get to that issue and resolve that in some way, shape, or form, your anxiety is still going to continue and be as powerful, and can be debilitating. So
Mhm.
that's pretty much one of the big ways. And then, I
Yeah.
have different tips and tricks while you're out and about.
So like your trauma was underneath all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, and I think before we went live, I was sharing with you, I went through one summer where I was really struggling with anxiety, and I never went to the doctor and got a diagnosis, but it was related to a situation in my life. And I'm a person of faith. For one thing that really helped me was a Max Lucado book called Anxious for Nothing, based on a verse in Philippians that says that we should be anxious for nothing, but pray about everything, and then God's peace would fill our hearts. And that was really helpful to me. Um, when I was going through anxiety, but in both with that book and with what you're saying, anxiety a lot of times is just the surface level problem.
Yes.
And so you always have to kind of figure out what's beneath that. Um, so for people who are listening or who are watching the replay, if they're struggling with anxiety, and most people in my world here also have ADHD symptoms, whether they have a diagnosis or not. They may struggle with focus and time management, organization, productivity, clutter, Um, and I do hear a lot of people talk about feeling overwhelmed. That the big overwhelm word comes up a lot. And uh, they may not call it anxiety, but they'll say, I'm stressed out or I'm overwhelmed.
Mhm.
For people who are feeling like that, especially in the holiday season when everything kind of ramps up to it's even busier. Um, People with ADHD have trouble with overstimulation, all the lights and the busyness and the people. And what are some practical things that they can do to kind of lower that anxiety?
Well, I have 4 main things that I do. One is definitely exercise, even if it's just a walk. You don't have to go to a gym. You can walk in place in your house, do some jumping jacks, put on some music or dance. The second thing is meditation. Meditation has been huge for me. And I especially like to do it at nighttime, right as I'm going to bed. I'll listen to a meditation because it just calms my nerves and it just calms my head and it calms everything that's going on. But prefer guided meditation because then I focus on the person's voice and it takes me out of my thoughts.
Mhm.
Another thing is routine. I find routine is really important too, as far as not and I don't have a very strict structured routine, but I do have certain things I do at certain points of the day. And I find that knowing that, okay, this is going to happen now, is what I'm looking forward to, this is what I do later. Just having those simple things in place, like in the afternoon, I have a cup of tea. That's my time to just kind of from the morning
Mhm.
and then work towards what's going to happen in the afternoon. I find that I write down 3 things that I need to or want to accomplish for that day. And if I only get 2 of those things done, I celebrate it
Mm.
because sometimes you just get into that overwhelm and you don't really know how to get through it. So when you can just even if it's just one, celebrate it. That's what I say. Celebrate it. And lastly, the thing that has been big to me is self-care. And a lot of people think that self-care is selfish. And I think that was a big piece that I was missing because having 6 children, I was always taking care of everybody else, but I
Mm.
never took the time for myself. And self-care doesn't mean I have to go out to the spa and get, my hair and my nails done. No. Self-care is just curling up in a chair with a book or like my cup of tea in the afternoon. That to
Right.
me is self-care because I'm taking that time for myself to just breathe. Breathing. Breathing is another big thing that, especially when you go into like a panic attack, breathing is one of the most crucial things that has helped me. And I know that you want to take a big, deep breath. And I know it's so very hard. But I promise after you get that very first big, deep breath in, the next few deep breaths get easier and easier.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, Deep breathing is a great stress management technique, and I've um, I've taught people in the past to breathe in for the count of 4 and then breathe out for the count of 4, and to do that 3 times. Whenever they start to feel themselves get a little panicky, just
Hmm.
stop and do that, and it doesn't take very long, but it's amazing
Yes.
how that will slow your brain down. If you have ADHD, it's like having a race car brain with no brakes.
Yeah.
It's just going nonstop, and you can't even really slow it down when you want to. So that breathing really does force, it brings oxygen to your brain and it forces you to kind of slow down. But you said a lot of really good things. I think, uh, you know, exercise is one of the best things people can do for ADHD because it actually does release that dopamine, which is that neurotransmitter, that feel good chemical in our brain, and it kind of keeps our focus in one direction in our brains. So that's really a good thing. And meditation, I know a lot of people try to do that on their own, and the fact that you said a guided meditation is better because it brings you from focusing on what you're worrying about to focusing on
Yes.
what am I supposed to be doing now? I'm supposed to be following this person, you know. Um, and I think music does that too sometimes, you know,
Yes.
when you turn music on, and
Depends on the music though.
depends on the music, yeah. But then I like that you said, and I also tell people write down 3 things that you want to accomplish. You take your giant to-do list, you prioritize 3 things, and then if you get done with those things, you can do others.
Right.
But you can't see everything as equal. But I liked that you said you celebrate your wins. You celebrate when you accomplish something, because a lot of people that I work with, they want to tell me all the things that they should be doing. And I always say, quit shooting on yourself,
Right.
you know, because yes, we all could be doing more, should be doing more, but the focus should be on what we have done and how far we've come,
Exactly.
because that is something that gives you that self confidence to continue and gives you that motivation.
Yeah, and I didn't
So,
always think that way. That was the whole thing. That was a whole like a mindset set shift for me because I would
mhm,
be like, "Oh, I didn't get this done. Oh, I didn't get that done." But once I started celebrating what I was getting done, I started to
mhm,
feel better about myself. And I started to feel like I was accomplishing things versus being on myself for what I did not accomplish that day. And it just
right.
made me happier.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So, so the people that you help, are you doing this one-on-one or in a group, or how does that work?
I do work one to one. I am launching a group program come January, so I will be doing that because I feel like I kind of struggled with that because there's a lot of people that have anxiety, but they don't want to talk about it. But at the same time, I think that it's comforting to know that there are other people that have the same feelings as you and you can like lift each other up just like you have in your group. Your group is
Mhm.
there to support each other and lift
Right.
each other up and have understanding. So I might explain anxiety to a friend. They might not understand it because they've never experienced it. But when I'm having a conversation with other people that have experienced it, it's a different conversation, and it's almost like a safe space where there's no judgment and you're able to open up and really just get those feelings out. And you'd be surprised how just sharing your feelings with other people that truly understand is huge. And one
Mhm.
thing I always say, and I'll say this as far as like ADHD and even that, anybody with any kind of mental illness, challenges, or if they're telling you that and you don't have those feelings and you don't have those struggles, validate their feelings, because to them it is a real feeling. To them, they do have these issues and these. And when somebody does not validate that those are real to them, it kind of puts them back into a little shell of not wanting to be open and not
Mhm.
wanting to and taking away their confidence because they're like, oh, there's something wrong with me, and there's not. You're just different. You're wired a little different. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the name of my Facebook group is the Adults Professionals with ADHD Positive Performance Club.
Love
Long
it.
name, but positive. My coaching program, 3P Power, positive, prepared, productive. So that positive is big because, I don't think of ADHD as a mental illness. It's a neurological disorder, but I don't even like the term attention deficit because we don't really have a deficit of attention. We just focus on too many things
Yes.
and the
Right.
wrong things at the wrong time. Um, but I don't really like to use ADHD as an excuse. And so I encourage people to not label themselves as somebody with a disorder, but just someone whose brain is wired differently. And I believe everybody was created on purpose, for a purpose. There are so many successful people with ADHD, and many of them attribute their success to that. I've read an article on the founder of JetBlue Airlines, David Neilman, and he was asked, if you could be given a pill that would take away your ADHD, would you take it? He said no. He
Mhm.
believes that the reason he's got that out of the box thinking is because of his ADHD. And there are many creative artists who have anxiety disorders, and they, um, you know, part of that brain wiring allows you to be creative. So I love that.
Yeah,
I
my oldest son has ADHD, and he has written a book. He has learned 4 languages, taught himself how to play guitar, and now he is become like a reptile aficionado and has like 35 different reptiles, but he could tell you everything about them, how to take care of them. Like, I mean, it's amazing what he's accomplished.
Yeah, and there are so many, people with high intelligence and creativity that have ADHD, but their brain, the symptoms that we see as challenges, uh, keep people from seeing that brilliance sometimes.
Yep.
So, being able to learn how to kinda leverage those, what I call superpowers of ADHD, but also managing the challenges, that's what I do in my coaching program. So, um, anyway, that's very interesting. There's a lot in common. Well, as we close, is there anything else, that you can think of to share that would help these people? And I also want you to share how people could get in touch with you if they wanted to find out more.
Well, I want to give one of my tools away as far as what happens, like in a supermarket. I love to share this because I've had so many people come back and say that really works. So if you're in a supermarket or any kind of store that's like really crowded and you start to get that anxious feeling, I call it the ABC game. It's that simple. And I have to go through the store, and as I'm going, I have to find something that starts with an A and a B, and go through the whole alphabet. And usually by the time I get to Z, I'm through the store, I have everything I need, and I'm on the checkout line. So
Wow.
it's been pretty powerful as far as, and just being able to find a way to distract myself while I'm in the store. If I'm starting to feel that anxious feeling, I start playing the game. And I've had a lot of people come back and say, wow, that really works.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know someone who struggles with anxiety on an airplane, and I bet that would work in that situation as well. Um,
Well, I
yeah.
don't I don't like to fly either. So what I normally do is I either have meditation ready to play, or I have an audiobook and I listen
Mhm.
to the audiobook. I make sure that I have something that I can focus on, and I close my eyes and pretend I'm in a car, in the back seat of a car.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and several of those things you talked about, kind of redirecting your mind
Mhm.
to the guided meditation or to the ABC, or, so I think that's one of the things that can keep us from spiraling, because anxiety is not gonna get better on its own. You have to kinda disrupt it really
Right.
with some other thought. Yeah, so that's
That's the
interesting.
biggest trick, trying to distract yourself.
Mhm. Wow. Well, so how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more?
I'm Debbie D. Wahba on all social media. You can reach me there or at it's debbiedwaba.com/info. No, connect. Sorry.
Okay.
debbiedwaba.com/connect.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And it looks like we're going to have a lot of people watching the replay. It is Thanksgiving week. A lot of people are busy. So hopefully, if you're watching the replay, just say #replay in the comment section. And definitely follow Debbie if you want more information. So we're going to end this live stream, and we'll see you next time. Have a good Monday.
Thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Debbie. We'll connect again soon.
Sounds good.
Have a good night.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.